Good afternoon, class.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
You may take your seat.
Thank you, ma'am.
So, class, I want you to go to your respective groups as we have our class discussion. So now you are on your respective groups. So I want you to get your cell phones and any digital devices that you may use in this afternoon's discussion. So I want you to go to the website of the DepEd TV and watch the learner-centered psychological principles of
Good day, everyone. This is Teacher William.
This is Teacher Laika.
This is Teacher Hazel. This is Teacher Aya. This is Teacher Dab. And
Welcome to the study house of Christine.
Good day everyone, welcome to the Study Hub 6. In this module, we have the four important objectives. First is to discuss the nature of learning-centered teaching modalities, structures and method, and strategies that facilitate differentiate teaching to suit learners' gender needs, strength, interest, and experience. Second, we have identify factors that promote learning-centeredness and motivate learners to work productively and accountable for their own learning. Third, we have reflect on how developmental and societal factors can influence learning environments to promote fairness, respect, and care. Lastly, we have the Relate Republic Act 105 and the K-12 framework to principle and learning centeredness.
Good day, students, and welcome to Study Hub 6. This is Teacher Dab along with my co-teacher, Teacher William, Teacher Laika, Teacher Hazel, and Teacher Ira. In this lesson, we're going to discuss to you about the learner-centered psychological principles. Hello again, students. I am Teacher Dab, and for subtopic 1, I will discuss to you about the 14 learner-centered psychological principles. So the 14 learner-centered psychological principles, these refer to a set of guidelines developed by the American Psychological Association or APA to provide a framework for educational reform and redesign. These principles are based on research and theory from psychology and education, focusing on the internal factors that influence learning rather than external or environmental factors. This emphasizes the importance of understanding how learners think, feel, interact with their learning environment to create effective educational experience. So the 14 principles are divided into those referring to cognitive and metacognitive, motivational and affective, developmental and social, and individual difference factors. So, cognitive and metacognitive. Cognitive skills include instructional objects, components, a learning hierarchy, and components in information processing, while metacognitive skills include strategies for reading comprehension, writing, and mathematics. Motivational skills include motivational based on interest, self-sufficiency, and attributions. So the principles under the cognitive and metacognitive factor, the first is nature of learning process. This is the learning of complex subject matter is most effective when it is an internal process of constructing meaning from information and experience. The second is goals of learning process. This is the successful learner over time and with support and instructional guidance. It can be create meaningful, coherent representations of knowledge. The third is construction of knowledge. This is the successful learner can link new information with existing knowledge in meaningful ways. Knowledge widens and deepens as students continue to build links between new information and experience in their existing base knowledge. So the fourth principle is strategic thinking. This is the successful learner can create and use a repertoire of thinking and reasoning strategies to achieve complex learning and goals. Successful learners use in their approach to learning reasoning, problem solving, and concept learning. The fifth principle is thinking about thinking. Successful learners can reflect on how they think and learn and set reasonable learning or performance goals, selected potentially appropriate learning strategies or methods, and monitor their progress towards these goals. The sixth principle is the context of learning. Learning is influenced by environmental factors, including culture, technology, and instructional practice. So the next is motivational and affective. This refers to the emotion related to a specific situation or interest and motivation related to task or subject matter. Motivational and affective factor. This includes the seventh principle, which is the motivational and emotional influence on learning. This refers to the rich internal words of thoughts, beliefs, goals, and expectation for success or failure can enhance or interfere with the learner's quality of thinking and information processing. So the eighth principle is the intrinsic motivation to learn. Intrinsic motivation is stimulated by tasks of optimal novelty and difficulty relevant to personal interests and providing for personal choice and control. The ninth principle is effect on motivation and effort. Effort is another major indicator of motivation to learn. The acquisition of complex knowledge and skills demand the investment of considerable learner energy and strategic effort along with persistent overtime. So the next is developmental and social. So this refers to the influence of learning impacted by opportunities and constraints as individuals develop physically, intellectually, emotionally, and socially. Learning is most effective when accounting for difference in development across these domains. Social influence on learning also impact the learning process through social interactions, relationships, and communication with others. So the principles under the developmental and social includes the 10th principle, which is the developmental influence on learning. Learning is most effective when the developmental within across physical, intellectual, emotional, and social domains is taken into account. Individuals learn best when material is appropriate and their developmental level is presented in an enjoyable and interesting way. So the 11th principle is social influence on learning. Learning can be enhanced when the learner has an opportunity to interact and to collaborate with others on instructional tasks. Lastly, the individual different factors. Examples of individual difference include personality traits, values and beliefs, physical abilities, age, gender, ethnicity, learning styles, cognitive abilities, attitudes and emotions, and levels of motivation resilience. So the principles under the individual difference include 12th principle, which is the individual differences in learning. Individuals are born with and develop their own capabilities and talents. Educators need to help students examine their learning preferences and expand or modify them if necessary. So the 13th principle is learning and diversity. This is the same basic principle of learning, motivation, and effective instruction applied to all learners. And lastly, the 14th principle, which is the standard and assessment. Assessment provides important information to both the learner and the teacher at all stages of the learning process. So to sum up, these principles provide a comprehensive framework for designing and implementing learner-centered educational practice. This emphasizes the importance of understanding individual learners, their motivations, and their learning styles to create a supportive and engaging learning environment. By applying these principles, educators can foster a more effective and equitable learning experience for all students.
References.
Cognitive and metacognitive factors. Cognitive factors refer for the mental processes like memory, attention, problem solving, and reasoning, which help in learning and understanding. On the other hand, metacognitive factors involve awareness to control one's own thinking, such as planning, monitoring, evaluating how you learn or solve problems. In short, when you say cognitive is what you think, and on the other one, when you say metacognitive is how you think about your thinking. Nature of learning processes. Effective learners involves constructing meaning from information and experience. Learning processes vary habit formation, knowledge, and generation. Successful learners are active, goal-directed, and self-regulator. Nature of learning process is one of the best example for this is as a student learning to play the piano uses both motor learning habit formation for perfect finger movements and cognitive skills to understand and musical theory and interpret how the music is being played. Nature of learning processes. Effective learners involves constructing meaning from information and experience. Learning processes vary habit formation, knowledge, and generation. Successful learners are active, goal-directed, and self-regulator. Nature of learning process is one of the best example for this is as a student learning to play the piano uses both motor learning habit formation for perfect finger movements and cognitive skills to understand and musical theory and interpret how the music is being played. So we are moving for goals of learning processes. Learners should create meaningful knowledge. Representation of learning is a goal of oriented with both short-term and long-term goals. Educators should help students align goals with personal and educational aspirations. So one of the most example of goals of the learning process is a student is initial aims to pass a math test, short-term goal, but over time relies on their understanding and set a long-term goal of mastering calculus to pursue engineering. So we are moving for goals of learning processes. Learners should create meaningful knowledge. Representation of learning is a goal of oriented with both short-term and long-term goals. Educators should help students align goals with personal and educational aspirations. So one of the most example of goals of the learning process is a student is initial aims to pass a math test, short-term goal, but over time relies on their understanding and set a long-term goal of mastering calculus to pursue engineering. Construction of knowledge. New information must connect to existing knowledge to be useful. Links between knowledge vary based on object, subject, talent, and interest. Educators can help learners to integrate knowledge through strategies like concept mapping. One of the most examples for this for construction of knowledge is in history class. Our students learners about World War II and connects the new information knowledge with prior understanding of World War I, seeing how global conflicts evolve. Strategic thinking. Successful learners are use varied strategies for problem solving and concept of learnings. Strategies evolve through reflections, instructions, and observations. Education should support learners in developing strategic thinking skills. One of the most examples for this is when solving a complex math problem. A student uses different strategies like breaking the problem into smaller parts, using trial and error, and applying formulas they've learned. Thinking about thinking. Metacognition is a higher order of thinking. Enables learners to set goals, monitor progress, and solve problems. Learners can adjust strategies or goals as needed. Instruction should focus on developing metacognitive skills to enhance responsibility for learning. One of the most examples for this is while studying for a biology test, as students realize their current strategy of reading and text isn't effective. They switch to creating flashcards and self-quizzing to improve retention. Context of learning. Learning is influenced by environment, culture, technology, and teaching practice. The classroom environment and culture factors impact its instructional tools of teaching style. Practices must match learners' ability and prior knowledge. One of the most example for this is a student from a rural area may be more motivated to learn agricultural sciences. It is simply because of their culture background, while another students might be online stimulations, technology to deepen their understanding of basics. In conclusion, cognitive and metacognitive factors are essential to learner process, influencing how learners acquire, process, and apply knowledge. Cognitive factors are evolved mental function to support learnings, while metacognitive factors enables learners to monitor regularly their thinking. Effective education requires helping students to build meaningful connection to set goals by applying strategic thinking. By fostering both cognitive and metacognitive skills, it supports context. Educators can enhance students' ability to become active, self-directed learners capable of adapting various challenges. Once again, this is William Reyes. I hope you learned something about cognitive and metacognitive. Next reporter will be discussed by Teacher Laika.
So, okay class, let's end our discussion for this afternoon. So, as soon as possible, I have the result for the SET assessment. I'll be updated to you. So, goodbye and see you tomorrow.
Goodbye and thank you, ma'am.
Tama na.
References.
Thank you, Teacher Reyes. Good day to each and everyone. I am Suika Mercado, and I will be your teacher later for this discussion. So for today, we will discuss about the motivational and emotional influence of learning. Do you know that the learner's motivation, which is influenced by their emotional states, beliefs, interests, and thinking habits, significantly impacts the amount and quality of the learning experiences. The learner's internal world of thoughts, beliefs, goals, and expectations can either enhance or interfere with their thinking and information processes abilities. Motivation is significantly influenced by students' self-perception and learning nature, which in turn affects their thinking, information processing, and overall motivation to learn. Positive emotions like curiosity, boost motivation and learning, right mild anxiety helps focus attention. Intense negative emotions distract from motivation, interfere with learning, and contribute to low performances. The internal growth of thoughts, beliefs, goals, and expectations can impact others' thinking. And it is information processing, motivation, and emotional factors also impact learning. Positive emotion like curiosity and mind, anxiety can enhance motivation and performance, while the intense negative emotions and thoughts can detract with motivation and hinder learning. So now let's proceed to our second topic, which is the intrinsic motivation to learn. Learners' creativity, higher thinking, and curiosity drive motivation, while intrinsic motivation is fueled by tasks that are optimally challenging, relevant to personal interest, and allow personal choice and control. Intrinsic motivation in learners is influenced by curiosity. It is insightful thinking and creativity, which are permanently driven by meeting basic needs for competence and personal control. Intrinsic motivation is boosted when tasks are similar to real-world scenarios and meet the needs for choice. Educators can foster learners to curiosity and motivation by addressing individual differences in their perception of novelty, difficulty, relevance, and personal choice and control. In conclusion, intrinsic motivation in learning is influenced by curiosity, flexible thinking, and creativity. It is primarily driven by meeting basic needs for competence and personal control. Education can support this by addressing individual differences in perception of novelty, difficulty, relevance, and personal choice and control. What is the effects of motivation in learning? So learning is complex knowledge and skills, necessitates extended effort and practice, and motivation is crucial for learners' willingness to exert effort without correction. Motivation to learn is largely determined by the effort and strategic investment made by the learner in acquiring complex knowledge and skills. Educators also should focus on strategies that boost learner motivation, effort, commitment, and comprehension, aiming to achieve high standards of understanding and comprehension. Strategies for effective learning include purposeful activities, practices, and the boost positive emotion and intrinsic motivation, and methods that enhance learner perceptions of task and interest and personality relevant. In line with this, effort is a key indicator of motivation to learn, requiring significant investment and persistence. Educators should enhance motivation through purposeful activities, positive emotions, intrinsic motivation, and increasing learner perception of tasks as interesting and relevant. So as a conclusion, motivation and emotional influence on learning are crucial for engagement, persistence, performance, personal connection, and self-regulation. Motivation drives students to engage with material, fosters resilience, enhances cognitive functions, and promotes long-term retention. These influences create an effective and enriching learning environment. So that would be all for my topic. So again, I am Teacher Laika. So help me welcome Teacher Romero for the another topic.
Thank you for that. So, a pleasant day, my students. My name is Teacher Hazel Ann A. Romero, and welcome to Study Hub number 6. So, for today's discussion, I will be tackling about the developmental and social factors. So, we have two factors for this lesson. Number 1 is the developmental influences on learning, and number 2, we have the social influences on learning. Let us start with number 1. As individuals develop, there are different opportunities and constraints for learning. Learning is most effective when differential development with and across physical, intellectual, emotional, and social domains is taken into account. Individuals learn best when the material is appropriate to their developmental level and is presented in an enjoyable and interesting way. Because individual development carries across intellectual, social, emotional, and physical domains, achievement in different instructional domains may vary. Overemphasis on one type of developmental readiness, such as reading readiness, may preclude and the quality of language interactions and two-way communications between adults and children can influence these developmental areas. And lastly, awareness and understanding of developmental differences among children with or without emotional, physical, or intellectual disabilities can facilitate the creation of optimal learning contexts. Now let us move on to the number 2 factor, which is social influences on learning. Learning is influenced by social interactions, interpersonal relations, and communication with others. Learning can be enhanced when the learner has an opportunity to interact and to collaborate with others on instructional tasks. In interactive and collaborative instructional contexts, individuals have an opportunity for perspective taking and reflective thinking that may lead to higher levels of cognitive, social, and moral development, as well as self-esteem. Learning settings that allow for social interactions and that respect diversity encourage flexible thinking and social competence. Quality personal relationships that provide stability, trust, and care can increase the learner's sense of belonging, self-respect, and self-acceptance, and provide a positive climate for learning. Family influences, positive interpersonal support, and instruction in self-motivation strategies can offset factors that interfere with optimal learning, such as negative beliefs about confidence or sex role expectations, high levels of anxiety, and the undue pressure to perform well. And lastly, positive learning climates can help to establish the context for healthier levels of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Such contexts can help learners feel safe to share ideas, to actively participate in the learning process, and lastly, to create a great learning community. A real-life example of developmental influences on learning can be seen in early childhood education. Imagine a 5-year-old child starting kindergarten. At this stage, the child may be more developed socially and emotionally than academically. The teacher provides activities like group play, storytelling, and basic problem-solving exercises, which are appropriate for the child's developmental level. However, if the teacher pushed the child into reading complex texts too early, or focusing solely on reading readiness, it might cause frustration and overlook the child's stronger social and emotional skills. By balancing the child's developmental readiness in different areas, the teacher helps build confidence and engagement in learning.
References. individual differences, and factors.
First, we have individual differences in learning. Learners have different strategies, approaches, and capabilities for learning that are function of prior experience and heredity. Individuals are born with and develop their own capabilities and talents. In addition, through learning and social acculturation, they have acquired their own preferences for how they like to learn and the pace at which they learn. However, those preferences are not always useful in helping learners reach their learning goals. Educators need to help students examine their learning preference and expand or modify them if necessary. Educators need to be sensitive to individual differences. In general, they also need to attend to learner perceptions of the degree to which these differences are accepted and adapted by varying instructional methods and materials. Second, we have learning and diversity. Learning is most effective when differences in learners, linguistics, cultural, and social backgrounds are taken into account. The same basic principles of learning, motivation, and effective instruction apply to all learners. However, language, ethnicity, race, beliefs, and socioeconomic status all can influence learning. When learners perceive that their individual differences in abilities, backgrounds, culture, and experiences are valued, respected, and accommodated in learning, tasks and contents, level of motivation and achievements are enhanced. And the last one, we have the standards and assessment. So setting appropriately high and challenging standards and assessing the learner as well as learning process, including diagnostic process and outcome assessment, are integral parts of the learning process. Assessment provides important information to both the learner and teacher of all stages of learning process. Effective learning takes place when learners challenge to work towards appropriately high goals. Therefore, appraisal of the learner's cognitive strengths and weaknesses, as well as current knowledge, is important for the selection of instructional materials of an optimal degree of difficulty. Ongoing assessment of the learner's understanding of the curricular material can provide valuable feedback to both learners and teachers about progress towards the learning goals. Standardized assessment, learner progress and outcomes assessment, provides one type of information about achievement levels both within and across, and outcomes assessment provides one type of information about achievement levels both within and across individuals that can inform various types of programmatic decisions. Performance assessments can provide other sources of information about the attainment of learning outcomes. And self-assessment of learning progress can also improve students' self-appraisal skills and enhance motivation and self-directed learning. So that's all about the individual differences factors.
Reference.
Thank you, Teacher Daphne, Laika, Hazel, and Teacher Ira. So now we are moving for the conclusion and reflections. And aligning to this, learning is shaped by cognitive mental processes and metacognitive by thinking about thinking factors along motivation, emotion, development, and social influence. Effective learning requires students to connect new knowledge with new they already know the motivation. becoming a new directed learnings. As an educators, we should aim for fostering a balance approach addressing not only for cognitive needs students but also their emotional, social, developmental growth to unlock their full potential. So that will be all for this module. I hope you learned something to ask and hope you see you soon.
So, okay class, there you have it. So, I want you to get a one sheet of paper as we about to assess your learnings towards to the discussion based on the depth and attitude. First and foremost, please write your name. Start with family name, ends with your initial name. So, okay class, that's end our discussion for this afternoon. So as soon as possible, I have the result for the SET assessment. I'll be updated to you. So goodbye and see you tomorrow.
Goodbye and thank you, ma'am.
Tama na.